what is the first thing you would do to help bring down the cost to make things more affordable?
Why wouldn't Donald Trump take her to his hotel where he's got, beluga caviar and Dom Perignon and strawberries flown off of, Northern California on a golden Learjet with pillows made of angel feathers? Why wouldn't he just use his hotel? It doesn't make sense. And the whole point he was saying about the locked door in Bergdorf is that these places are, $1,200 for a pair of underwear and a negligee. Not that I would know, please don't judge me. But I'm just saying there's a lot of money there. And of course they lock the dressing room doors. High-end stores always do that because they don't want anyone going in on a whim. They want you to have a sales attendant because they all work on commission. So how did she find an unlocked one? Just luckily she did. It's ridiculous. And if she didn't, that means she willingly went in there with Donald Trump. What the hell do you think is going to happen? She said she tried on the lingerie at his request. So you willingly went in there. You got naked in front of him. What do you think was going to happen? And if she does have that type of judgment, doesn't she have some sort of personal responsibility, at least leading up to it, making this sound like a premeditated thing with Donald Trump? It's ridiculous. The whole story reeks of Democrat plant, which it always does. And this is what they always do. It's always amazing that in an election year, all of these sexual predators seem to come out and then disappear until it is apropos to bring them back yet again.
Drill, baby, drill.
Good answer. He's not talking about Jean Carroll, by the way.
A debt limit, and they used that very seriously. They came in, Schumer came in with Nancy Pelosi, and they were using it. We'll violate it, we'll do whatever. They talked a whole lot different than they do right now. I say to the Republicans out there, congressmen, senators, if they don't give you massive cuts, you're going to have to do a default. And I don't believe they're going to do a default because I think the Democrats will absolutely cave, because you don't want to have that happen. But it's better than what we're doing right now because we're spending money like drunken sailors.
So just to be clear,
I resemble that comment. Thank you very much. Here's the thing. Defaulting on the debt is not good. And we've had our credit rating lowered before in the United States, and it certainly is what would happen again. People are tied into the American dollar way too much across the globe. It is the global currency for business. If you want to disagree with that, that's fine. No matter what Russia and Iran and South Africa and China are doing, that is going to have a small dent, and about 2.3% of the overall American dollar would be impacted. Who cares? It's a microcosm of the overall value of our dollar. But defaulting, and what he's trying to say is it's very simply a balance of economics. Democrats like to go ahead and say, well, wait a second, we have a surplus of money, similar to Bill Clinton, where he closed bases and shut down the military and lowered the overall military spend of the defense budget by almost $300 million, and then says, hey, look, we have a surplus. That left George Bush in a horrible place after 9/11. The same thing held true for Obama, who went ahead and cut certain defense spending and troop and investment into bases and investment into weapon systems, and then simply say, oh, well, look what we've done. The one thing about Barack Obama is GNP and overall growth rate, but also deficit was fairly flat. He ran a very vanilla economy for 8 years. Donald Trump ran a net growth for his economy, and then went ahead and had one of the highest spends. But if you look at the deficit to the actual contribution to the deficit, it was actually ranked like 11th out of all presidents. Ronald Reagan was before him, Bush was before him, Clinton was before him, Obama was before him, and now Biden is before him because of the overall growth that he had, eclipsing one of his highest at 4.2% and staying fairly average at 2.732, which is going to allow him to spend more money because we're making more money versus Democrats, which have a flat or a negative growth and still continue to spend, which increases the deficit. This is what we're seeing with Joe Biden right now. It devalues the dollar. The government says, let's print money, and then you get inflation. It's pretty simple. You can blame COVID. You can blame Putin. You can do all of those things, but ultimately the president does control inflation through his decisions and through the overall economic growth of the United States. The old adage that the United States gets a cold and the rest of the world gets the flu is true here.
Mr. President, you think the U.S. should default if the White House does not agree to the spending cuts Republicans are demanding?
Well, you might as well do it now because you'll do it later. Because we have to save this country. Our country is dying. Our country is being destroyed by stupid people, by very stupid people.
You once said that you...
So what he's saying is, no, this isn't preferred, but you're going to do it anyway. And if you do it by not default, but do it where the dollar loses its value and ultimately collapses the world economy, that is a much more dangerous thing than the United States getting it right now and proposing budget cuts that actually would put us into a surplus. You have to make cuts. And yes, I understand it's hard. I understand people will be affected. The Democrats are saying that they want to cut 22% of veterans' benefits. That's not a lie. We're just asking not to increase it anymore. And yes, defense might need to come down a little bit. Overall spending for social programs might need to come down a bit. For God's sakes, the NEA might need to take a budget cut for the first time in 75 years. These things may need to take place. And yes, there are pain points, but it's better than not having a dollar valuation that actually leads the world economy and we're sucking hind tit and makes us vulnerable. It's not that difficult to understand. But Democrats once again believe that just because you spent it last year, you should be able to spend it this year as well. Damn any of the signs of a slowdown to an economy or a real estate bubble or stocks that are going to drop. We spend the same amount because, like the highwaymen who fix your road construction crews, we have to justify our previous budget by spending every frickin' penny no matter what so we get the same budget next year. That's liberal policy. Republicans want to evaluate the economy, evaluate the world stage, and make decisions to have predictive forecasting of where we're going to be with the Fed, with real estate prices, stock prices, global index, etc. If you can't do that, then you have no business trying to balance the budget. It's like balancing your checkbook on promises, and every time you pay off your credit card, simply saying, oh, look, we have another $10,000 free. Let's max out the credit card again. Democrat policy versus Republican.
Using the debt ceiling as a negotiating wedge just could not happen. You said that when you were in the Oval Office.
That's when I was president.
So why is it different now that you're out of office?
Because now I'm not president. We have a very big mental health problem in this country. And again, it's not the gun that pulls the trigger. It's the person that pulls the trigger. And we have to protect our Second Amendment. We have to protect our Second Amendment.
Mr. President, you dealt with a lot of mass shootings when you were in office. This year, there have already been more than 200 mass shootings in 2023. If you are reelected, are there any new gun restrictions that you would sign into law?
I would do numerous things. For instance, schools. We would harden, very, very much harden. And I'm a very believer. I believe in teachers. I love teachers. I think they're incredible. And they love the children, not quite like the parents, but they love the children in many cases almost as much. Many of these teachers are soldiers, ex-policemen. They're people that really understand weapons. And you don't need 5% of the teachers would be more than you could ever have if you're going to hire security guards. But in addition to that, have security guards. You have to harden your entrances. You have to make schools safe. And you can make other places safe. But it is a big mental health problem in this country more than anything else. If you look at Chicago has the single toughest gun policies in the nation. They are so tough you can't breathe. New York, too, and other places also. All of those places are the worst and most dangerous places. So that's not the answer. I consider the other side to be radical because the other side, under Roe v. Wade and other things, the other side, they're radical because they will. Remember the debate with Hillary Clinton? I said, rip the baby out of the womb at the end of the 9th month. They will kill the baby in the 9th month. If you look at that crazy governor of Virginia from the former governor, where he said, no, the baby will be born, and then we'll decide essentially whether or not to execute the baby.
But, Mr. President, can we talk about what you would do if
these are the radical people. It's not the pro-life.
Anything they can do to not envision a baby lying on a table in being ripped from the womb. Anything they can do to go ahead and make it a mass clump of cells. See, this is the thing. Humanity has been taken out of conversation. And every time the media gets involved, they go, well, let's not go into emotion. Wait a second. That's not emotion. It happens to be a fact that has an emotional downside to it. That doesn't make it unfactual or not a point that's valid. See, that's the difference. They will go ahead and say something that it's a women's right. It's their body. Well, that's an emotional argument because you're not even considering the body of the baby. Republicans are saying, yes, look at the outcome of your actions. It's not emotional. It's a natural and God given right for the right to life, pursuit of happiness. And what you're doing is destroying a life in order to make your life easier. That's not an emotional argument. It's a platitude. We have to stop this and bring emotion that is an outcome from an action back into the conversation versus saying, oh, well, don't get emotional about this. Let's stick to the facts. Well, it is a fact. Just because it has an emotional reaction shouldn't matter.
people that are
But
radical.
if you are
It's these
reelected and you're
people that will kill a baby in the 9th month or the 8th month or the 7th month or after the baby is born, they're the radicals, not the
I
pro-life
just want to
people.
give you
Nice.
You're going to have millions of people pouring into our country right now at a level that nobody's ever seen before. These people are sick. Anybody that wants this to happen to our country, they're destroying our country, and this should not be allowed to happen. How they're not going to do a version of Title 42 or my Title 42, which was tough. If people are sick and have infectious diseases and lots of other problems, we don't want them being into our country. We have enough problems right now. We have problems like we've never had in the history of our country.
But, Mr. President,
our country
the
is
reason it's
being
ending-
destroyed. A country has to have borders. There's never been anything like is happening to our country right now.
You built about 52 miles of new wall when you were in office,
It is.
Mr.
Okay, so once again, this is cherry picking the stats, right? So what you're looking at is actually about 412 miles of wall. It wasn't just the 52 miles of new wall that Donald Trump built. Now, remember, he would have built all of it if they just would have allowed him to do it versus blocking money for national defense, which border is national defense. It's the president's number one responsibility. The first thing is protecting the sovereign soil of the United States and its citizens. Putting up a border is absolutely essential and in his purview with nobody else's. Now, the dollar can be reassociated any way he sees fit, and that's what he did. He took money from the defense budget and moved it into the wall. Democrats couldn't block that. He has the right to do that. That's his job. That's how he enforces the law. The problem here is that it wasn't just 52 miles. It was 412 miles of repair that was needed. Portions of the wall were falling down. They were dilapidated. They were old. It was aqueducts only in some cases that were easily traversed. Donald Trump did a ton for the border. It was one of his largest successes with Title 42, with deporting, with extending the policy that the Biden administration and Obama administration, kids in the cages that they did. Donald Trump slowed illegal immigration in the United States and had one of the most successful campaigns and was still humane in his design. Fentanyl drug use was going down, sex trafficking was going down, and the border was getting in control. He expanded agents on the border. He increased their funding. He gave them the motivation and support that they needed. Legislation was not pushed through because Democrats wanted to block it. He even made a point that said, I'll allow 2 million Dreamers, the DACA recipients, back into the country. We will increase illegal immigration exponentially over the next 10 years. He gave them everything they wanted. You know what they said? No, because we're not going to give you the fucking wall. That's the thing. They did not want him to fulfill the campaign promise. So they blocked him at every single turn.
President, it wasn't the complete wall. One other thing that with
No, but I have to
immigration,
respond to that.
with your immigration, it was only about 52
can I
miles of
respond?
new wall.
This is what she does. I built hundreds of miles. Some of the wall was up there, and it would be laying on the ground, rusted, rotten steel, rusted, rotten wood, a little. And what the radical left, crazy Democrats did, if there's a piece of wood laying down, they consider that a wall. I built 30-foot walls that go down 7 feet into the ground. If there was a little piece of wood sitting in the ground, they said, oh, he's not building a wall. We already had a wall. Because this is the game. They're a party of disinformation.
It's not a game, Mr. President. It's about 52 miles of new wall. One other immigration policy you have.
See, the one thing Blaze didn't do a good job. It's a great cut, and I got, listen, I'm borrowing it from them, reappropriating, stealing. I don't know what. It doesn't matter. I'm using it, and it's a great cut, but it does not show how truly vindictive Caitlyn is. She interrupted him. She was dismissive. She's combative. She's got her legs crossed. Her arms are crossed. She wouldn't look him in the eye. She didn't like Donald Trump. And the whole point is CNN is so fucking bad at what they do, they couldn't find an unbiased person. They are rehiring people in record numbers. They fired so many of their late night and morning hosts. They're trying to find a new breed and a new blood. They can't even find someone who doesn't hate Donald Trump. That should show you that the Democrats are locked in from an ideological standpoint and completely entrenched. We should put them on the border. It'll be the greatest wall we've ever seen.
New wall. I built new wall.
52 miles,
for hundreds of miles.
CBP, Mr.
What I did is I replaced other wall that was laying down, that was up and rotting in the ground for 30 years. If I were president, this would have never happened. And even the Democrats admit that. Putin knew it would have never happened. And his pipeline would have never happened. A lot of things would have never happened. But this would never have happened. And all those dead people.
Every single Democrat knows. Listen, here, so frustrating. To answer the question, everyone goes, oh, well, Donald Trump was soft on Russia. No. Do you know how many sanctions he put on Russia? Does anyone have any, what he did in Syria? His relationship in the Middle East? What he did against Iran? The tariffs he put on China? Does everyone understand that that ultimately impacts China? Biden didn't do anything different with Russia. When you impact China, you impact Russia. When you impact Iran, you impact Russia. Donald Trump, from a foreign policy standpoint, put the screws to the rest of the world. He put NATO on notice. He had no proxy wars, no ongoing wars that were created by him. He didn't have any major conflicts. The thing about Donald Trump that they hate is Democrats are war hawks, and they believe that the United States is the leader of the world, that somehow we are kings and it's our responsibility to police and put in new forms of government and roll our beliefs into other people. It's pretty pathetic. Donald Trump doesn't believe that. He believes in America first. He stayed out of these things, but still impacted 3 peace treaties in the Middle East. Went ahead and stopped the nuclear Iran deal, which was a complete travesty, got out of the Paris Climate Accord, got in with North Korea, and treated them on their merit and the relationship that he built with them versus the past, where Democrats wanted to go into North Korea. Democrats wanted to go into Iran. I mean, we have a very long litany of presidents and administrations and political parties that have completely pushed the war machine. Donald Trump didn't want to do that. He wants America to be based on its own merit, wants to be a leader, wants to influence the world, not control it. And these liberals just immediately say, no, that's not the way it works. We want populism. We want state-run, world-run governments. And that's not what Donald Trump wants. That's one of the reasons they hate him so much, because without that influence, they lose their entire political platform.
Both Russian and Ukrainian, they wouldn't be dead today. And all those cities that are blown up and disintegrated right to the ground, that wouldn't have happened.
What do you give you?
And you're not going to get any Democrat to admit that that Vladimir Putin would not go into Russia. They're not going to say it that way. What they're going to do is say the opposite. All the things that I just mentioned, which is about their policy, that speaks volumes for them. Anytime you want to listen and find out what Democrats are doing, listen to what they're accusing of other people of, and that's their MO. That's the modus operandi of their initiative.
I was impeached by a crazy woman named Nancy Pelosi.
But the question here is, would you give Ukraine weapons and funding if you were elected?
I would sit down. Let me just put it a nicer way. If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
How would you settle that war in one day?
Because I'll meet with Putin, I'll meet with Zelensky. They both have weaknesses and they both have strengths. And within 24 hours, that war will be settled. It'll be over. It'll be absolutely over.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country.
Why did you take those documents with you when you left the White House?
I had every right to under the Presidential Records Act. You have the Presidential Records Act. I was there and I took what I took and it gets declassified. Biden, on the other hand, he has 1,850 boxes. He had boxes sent to Chinatown, where they don't speak even English in that Chinatown we're talking about.
But I got to stop you right there.
Nobody talks about him. They talk about us. Just so you understand, I had every right to do it. I didn't make a secret of it. You know, the boxes were stationed outside of the White House. People were taking pictures of the GSA of the various people.
I got to stop you right there, then, because the Presidential Records Act, which is not well known to a lot of people, I read it. It does not say that you can take documents with you. It says actually that they are the property of the federal government.
It says you talk, you negotiate, you make a deal. It's not criminal, by the way. The Presidential Records Act is not criminal. And just so you know,
it does not say you can negotiate to take
It's actually not true. The Presidential Record Act is designed for a few things. One is that every single piece of paper, paperclip, everything in the United States government, even the weapon systems, are owned by the American people. The government isn't a corporation. It isn't an entity. These records can be used for something that every single president has extended is the presidential library. Every president gets the presidential library, unless obviously you're a Nixon or something like that. I don't even think, no, Nixon doesn't have a library, but everyone else gets a library. Okay. Donald Trump should get a library, but of course they're probably going to go ahead and try to block that as well. But the library usually doesn't come until after your political run. You've served your 8 years and a little bit after. It's kind of like the Hall of Fame. you would save these for your memoirs, for speaking engagements, things to that effect. And you do negotiate with the NARA, which is the National Association of Records and Archives, blah, 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 whatever. So you would negotiate with them. Donald Trump was doing that. He was not doing it in good faith. Some of those records were requested to come back. He held on to them. The FBI went in with a warrant, and this was back in January, looked at everything, cataloged everything, told him to padlock the door, told him to add security. Remember, Secret Service is there 24 hours, 7 days a week. You don't get much more secure than that. To get into Mar-a-Lago, to get into any place where Donald Trump spends an extended period of time is better than Fort Knox. Give me a freaking break. It's better than Joe Biden's garage when he was a senator, a vice president, when he had no right to have those documents. I'm not defending Trump. You cannot declassify TSI and top secret documents. Bullshit. 100%. Donald Trump is wrong. Anyone that says he is wrong. I know what Kash Patel says. He's absolutely wrong. And you know what? I will put my experience with TS and top secret clearances and code word clearances, because I was in military intelligence for quite a while. I know what my clearance was. I had a higher clearance than most admirals. Bullshit. He, even as president, has to go ahead and submit that to alphabet agencies, the agencies who are titled on the top of the document, who collected those assets to make sure that the collection apparatus is protected. It has to be redacted by the DOJ and the DOD, and then if approved, he can release those redacted documents. If he could, then why did Donald Trump have to fight the Kennedy assassination files that were top secret, which were code clearance, and he couldn't go ahead and release those, and he was pulled back at the last minute when he announced he was going to do that? Folks, it's pretty simple. Donald Trump should not have kept those documents. He gave them back because he didn't have a choice. 3 months later, the FBI came in, they seized those documents, they did a completely unconstitutional raid, which should not have happened because this has not happened to any president in history. They went ahead and got the documents. They could have taken them in January, except they waited for a political opportune moment to take those documents so they could get the most exposure closest to the midterms to embarrass Donald Trump and the Republican candidates. That's what they always do. You have a weaponized DOJ, you have a weaponized alphabet agency from the intel community that has been held over from Obama. Those were never replaced, and they have been reinstituted since Biden has taken over. This was one of the agreements that Obama made with Biden, and that's why he held his support for Biden for till 3 months before the general election. It's not that hard to realize that Obama is running the presidency of Joe Biden. His entire staff and administration were put back into place. They went ahead and vetoed and used executive order to remove all the things that Donald Trump undid of Obama's presidency and put them back into place. It's obvious to see. Let's stop pretending that this is about documents and not just another opportunity to go after Trump. Remember when they were nuclear secrets and he was selling them to Putin? The Democrats are so predictable.
Documents with you.
Can I tell you, just so you understand, the Presidential Records Act is not criminal. I took the documents. I'm allowed to. You know who else took them? Obama took them. Nixon took them.
Obama
Reagan
did not
took
take
them.
documents.
Oh, he didn't?
The difference.
How does she know? How does she know Obama didn't take documents? Because every single report is that he did take documents. Otherwise, all you got to do is read his book. All you got to do is go back in the back section of his book in the footnotes and where he's actually citing his sources. And there are freaking national security documents referenced in his book. How did he get those without getting permission from the NARA? You can find this from the NARA. Once again, Obama's perfect. He shits glorious tulips, and it smells a piquant shade of roses.
Here that I'd like
Take
to
a
know.
look.
The
Reagan
National
took
Archive
them.
says that President Obama
Even
did
Jimmy
not
Carter,
take
even Mike
documents.
Pence had some documents, and he's a
You
very
referenced
honorable
Pence,
guy.
you referenced
But you know who
Biden.
took them more than anybody is Joe Biden. He has 1,800 boxes.
That's
And
not
nobody
accurate,
even
Mr.
knows where
President,
they
and you
are.
know
It's
that.
not accurate, Mr. President.
And nobody talks
Where's your
about
fact,
it.
lady?
Let's hear
It
what happened
included a
when you had
raid
those
on my
documents.
house. That's what it included.
But
They
you had
didn't raid.
you'd gotten a
they didn't
subpoena
raid
and they had
Biden's
not been
house.
turned over yet.
They didn't raid Biden's house. You know what happened? They put him in the house. That's the one with the Corvette where the documents were laying all.
4 times Biden said, and his lawyers, oh, we've surrendered all documents. 4 times. And they found it in 3 separate states in 4 separate locations that he hadn't surrendered all the documents. After the first one, it should have been obstruction of justice, and the DOJ should have done a raid in every single location that Joe Biden was at. But what did he get? He got a no-knock raid. 8 hours of warning before they actually showed up, so everyone could have coffee and donuts ready and a nice cornucopia of spread of fruit and cream cheeses, and invite all of them over and in order to have a document burning session before they got there. I don't know if he burned documents, but if you have 8 hours of notice, you're damn skippy. Every single lawyer and staffer was scrubbing those locations to ensure that whatever was there that shouldn't have been there wasn't there when the investigation and the warrant took place.
Over the floor. That was fine. And you know who happens to be at Mar-a-Lago? Secret Service, and they're phenomenal. I have Secret Service. He didn't have Secret Service. The other thing, the vice president cannot declassify. He didn't have the right to declassify. He has documents from when he was a senator. And even Democrat senators say, I can't believe it. They didn't.
Remember this. He can declassify sensitive material, confidential, secret. Once you get into the top secret and code word, that's where he can't. And remember, Leroy and I went through the entire inventory. I had that inventory list before anyone else that a friend gave to me. We went ahead and provided everybody context from the January inventory list and the inventory list from late March, early April, June, whatever it was when the raid took place. I'd have to go back and look. But you can compare that the inventory stayed exactly the same. Most of the context, the 1,700 documents they claimed, were newspaper clippings, photographs, swag like golf balls and fanny packs that had the presidential seal on it. The documents that were actually TS coded were either folders or individual documents. 17 of them. 17 were code word classified SCI or top secret. The rest were folders and other things. Daily briefings take place past the White House all the time. The president travels to Camp David, private residence. He goes in Air Force One. He goes overseas. He goes in Marine ones. These intel briefings happen every day, and a military attaché will carry those briefings to the president and give him his brief in person. Those folders sometimes remain there. They burn the bags, leave the folders. It's an extreme amount of paperwork, and because the area is secure and essentially is a mobile SCIF, they don't really necessarily care about where the documents go. Is it haphazard? Yes. Is it lazy? Yes. Does it happen in the intel world? Abso-frickin-lutely. If you knew half the shit that happened in intel, you would absolutely roll over.
Raid the house of Joe Biden. They didn't raid Obama.
But Joe Biden didn't ignore a subpoena to get those documents back like you did.
Oh my God, perfect Joe Biden. He didn't, but if my grandmother had balls, she would be my grandfather. Man, this lady's a good-looking woman, but man, she is annoying as hell. She's a nasty woman.
And so that's the question.
1,850 boxes.
But that's the question that investigators have, I think, is why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena.
Because he's an ass. That's why. Because he doesn't care. It's Donald Trump, man. What do you want? You think Obama cares? You think he's going to go ahead and actually listen to a subpoena request to bring documents that he's had for 2 years? You really think he's going to go, oh, I'm going to fly up to Martha's Vineyard. I'm going to get on that stat. Give me a break.
To return
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Can you answer why?
Oh, so good. Here we go. Let's do it again.
The federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
you
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
So good.
Answer why you held on to the documents.
I was negotiating, and we were talking to NARA, that's Washington, to bring whatever they want. They can have whatever they want. When we left Washington, we had the boxes lined up on the sidewalk outside for everybody. People are taking pictures of them. Everybody knew we were taking those boxes. And the GSA, the government service, the GSA was the one taking them. They brought them down to Mar-a-Lago. We were negotiating with NARA. All of a sudden, they raid our house. When Biden had his documents, he won't give back the 1,850 boxes. And you're going to find some real gems in there. Let me ask you a question. Why is it that Biden had 9 boxes in Chinatown? And he gets a lot of money from China. Why is that?
It's a great question.
Why aren't people, why aren't people bringing that up? And why don't they put this?
This is a perfect example. And I know this is going long, but I don't care. I knew this one was going to be long. It's 20 minutes of footage, and there's no way I can't comment on all. Caitlyn is sitting here going, no, that's not true. Biden didn't take money. This is the point. It's not on her talking points. She hasn't been briefed. 6 hours earlier, the Republicans came out before this and laid out a complete case of the money laundering and the Biden 9 taking over $3 million from the Communist Chinese Party and showing the shell companies and the LLCs where the Biden family is getting paid. It's not 33%. It's not going to Biden, the big guy, but it's going to his family. Shouldn't we ask the question, why? Isn't it amazing that these documents are sitting in Chinatown? Well, it's just a question, and it's a good one. It's a good one to me. I want to know. But let me ask you a question. If you heard that 9 of Donald Trump's family members through shell companies and LLCs was taking money from Russia and the Russian oligarchs, and it wasn't a business or a hotel plan in Russia, and then they dropped it out in Little Kremlin in downtown Los Angeles, do you think maybe, just maybe, everybody would be flipping off the frickin' handle? Why don't we have the same standard for Biden that we do Trump? I wonder why.
Jack Smith and his group of thugs, why don't they put him in charge of that?
I need to stop you right there because there's no evidence of what you just said there. What you're referring to there is an office that he had after leaving the vice presidency. He had a temporary office.
She's wrong.
But I want to ask you about another investigation
that you're facing. You don't know the subject.
I do know the subject.
He had one at the university.
See, this is the problem when you put Gen Z. They're petulant little children. She could have said, you know what? I'm not sure what you're talking about. You may have information that I don't. I'll look into it, but let's change into something else because you could be right. I can be wrong. And I'll admit that I'm not versed on this. But the moment that he said, you're wrong, you don't even know about this subject, that is when you should stop and listen. You should have a conversation with yourself to STFU and to listen, because that's what a curious mind does. The problem with Gen Z is they think they fucking know everything like every other generation. And even worse, it's CNN, which are sure they know of everything.
Pennsylvania, but he also had 9 boxes in Chinatown
that you're facing, which is the one that's happening in Georgia, where
we are really putting it to Biden. But he's putting it to himself because the economy stinks, inflation is horrible, and the border is a disaster. And by the way he got out of Afghanistan was the single most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
I don't know about the most embarrassing, pretty embarrassing.
This country's going to be in big trouble. It's so sad to see what's happening.
But no commitment there on accepting the results regardless of the outcome.
If it's an honest election, correct, I will.
Okay, so not committing to accepting the 2024 election.
It's not what he said. He said he'll accept it if it's an honest election. You know who said the same thing? Hillary fucking Clinton. Did you go back and go ahead and hit her? Folks, I'm sorry I'm cussing. I can only take so much. This was just like the live show. By the end of the live show, I sounded like Andrew Dice Clay because I just can't take it anymore.
Results or acknowledging what happened in 2020. President Trump, I want to thank you for coming here tonight. This was an important conversation with voters to hear and to have.
Watch him.
Thank you to our
Just look at her
audience
like,
and to
whatever.
our host, St. Anselm College.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Caitlin. Good job. Thank you, Fred. Thank you very much. I like you guys. We love New Hampshire. Thank you, Woody. Good luck, Woody.
Here's the thing, and I'll just put a bow on it because we've already spent so much time on this. Is Donald Trump in no way, shape, or form, in my opinion, is a sore loser. He debates fiercely. And the moment that you took over that town hall and wanted to debate him, he's like, all right, full joy, let's go. You want to play a game? I'll play a game. I will bring it right to you. And then at the end, he was very cordial, very dismissive. Now, a lot of people think when he pointed at her that he was, flipping her off. That's not what he was doing. He's just pointing at her like, hey, look at this person. He was being condescending at some points. Absolutely. Calling her a nasty person, rolling his eyes, those type of things. It's a contentious argument. It's a debate. That's what you wanted. You changed the format from the people in the audience to making it about you. People weren't there to hear her, but of course she wants to argue with Donald Trump. It was a harsh, rough, petulant argument between two people. And in the end, he thanked her and said, good job. And, he belittled her a little bit during it. And then at the end, he brought it back. And I have no doubt in my mind that if they ever meet again, Donald Trump will extend the same amount of courtesy at the beginning. And if she pulls that same stuff, he will act the exact same way. And at least you know what you're going to get. It's garbage in, garbage out. He doesn't treat people differently. He treats everyone the same. Either you are treated this way and you treat him with respect, or he's going to give it right back to you. At least it's not Obama, who treated and shook hands with people, white people one way and black people the other. He panders to people. Donald Trump doesn't do that. Either way, I know it was long. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. I hope it added some value. Anybody wants to fact check my comments, please do. This wasn't one where I'm going to sit here with paper and put up screenshots. I usually do that, and I back up all my words. If you want to challenge something that I said or Donald Trump said, put it down below, and we will try to go ahead and address it. Let's be kind. Let's not go ahead and start calling people names, and let's not start the libtard and Trumptard crap. Let's have a higher level conversation and discuss it. Thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me show. We'll be live tonight with Amy, Leroy, and myself and Olivia at 8:30 tonight because we have baseball. Please stop by and join us tonight. It'll be a good time, and we will see you on the rebound. Good night.
I'm David Boreanaz with the Cast of SEAL team, and we have an important message for returning vets.
We want you to know if you're struggling to cope, there's help and it's just a phone call away.
The Veterans Crisis Line is staffed with experienced professionals who know your struggles.
There's no greater sacrifice in service to our country. We're able to enjoy our freedoms because of it.
Your service is important, you are important.
For vets and their families, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help 24 hours a day. Please call